Japan recorded almost everything: the names of emperors, the lineages of gods, the words spoken at the moment the country was founded. But there are periods when the record goes silent. Japan vanishes from Chinese records entirely. For 147 years, completely. Japan's own chronicles also go quiet. No battles, no policies, no account of what happened, who was fought, how the land was governed. Only silence. And yet, right at the entrance to that silence, Chinese historians wrote something down. War fell into great disorder. The people attacked one another for years. There was no ruler. Before the silence, there was a war. Japan's own record did not write it down, or could not. Today, we go into that silence. We go looking for the war Japan refused to record. There are two silences inside Japan's own record. The first is what historians call the Keshi Hachidai, the 8 emperors with no history. From the 2nd emperor Suize to the 9th Kaika, 8 rulers whose existence the chronicles acknowledge, but whose reigns they do not explain. No battles recorded, no policies, no account of what they did, or what happened while they ruled. The Nihon Shoki gives the 1st emperor Jimmu an entire volume. The 10th emperor Sujin receives an entire volume. These 8 emperors, all 8 combined, receive one. The second silence is the blank century. In 266 AD, a Japanese queen sends envoys to China, the last recorded contact. After that, for 147 years, Japan disappears from Chinese records entirely. These two silences are different in kind. The 8 emperors represent a silence about events. The blank century represents Japan's disappearance from the external record. But before accepting those silences at face value, consider this. No record is not the same as nothing happened. There is one detail worth examining closely. Every empress consort from this period of 8 emperors came from a relatively minor local clan within the Yamato Basin, not a single marriage to a powerful regional lord outside it. The historian Sakamoto Taro argued that this pattern matters. The fact that the imperial consorts were drawn mainly from smaller clans in the immediate Yamato region suggests the court at that time was still a local power, not yet a force capable of commanding the wider archipelago. During the era of these 8 emperors, Yamato was still small, still a regional presence, not a national one. So when did these 8 rulers actually live? The dates given in the chronicles cannot be taken at face value. The chronicle compilers place Emperor Jimmu's accession in 660 BC, a political choice, not a historical one, and stretch the reigns of early emperors to fill that artificial timeline. The result is a sequence that puts these 8 emperors centuries before the common era. That cannot be right. What follows is estimation, not fact. For the 10th emperor, Sujin, we have multiple independent data points. The death year cyclical notation in the Kojiki corresponds to 258 AD. The burial mound associated with him, Andonyama Kofun, is dated to the early 4th century by archaeology. Taking these together, a range of late 3rd century to early 4th century is the most widely cited estimate for Sujin's reign. There is ongoing discussion, and some scholars lean toward the earlier 4th century on archaeological grounds. The honest answer is, we are working with a range, not a fixed date. Working backward from that range, at roughly 20 to 30 years per reign, the 9th emperor falls in the early 3rd century. The 7th and 8th emperors land in the late 2nd to early 3rd century. The 5th emperor reaches back toward the mid-2nd century. The Great Disorder in Wei, as recorded by Chinese historians, is dated to roughly 146 to 189 AD. If this reverse calculation holds, and it is an estimate, not a certainty, then the later half of the 8 emperors, roughly the 5th through the 8th, may have lived during or immediately after that period of disorder. This is not proven, but when you place it alongside the pattern of minor consort clans, the picture that emerges is of a Yamato court that was still small, still vulnerable, still navigating a world it did not yet control. The Ho Hanshu, the book of the latter Han, records this. During the reigns of emperors Huan and Ling, Wa fell into great disorder. The people attacked one another for years. There was no ruler. 146 to 189 AD. If our reverse calculation is correct, this overlaps with the later half of the 8 silent emperors. The Wei Zhi, one of the most detailed Chinese accounts of ancient Japan, goes further. The country originally had a male ruler for 70 or 80 years. Then Wa fell into disorder, and the people attacked one another for years. They then jointly established a woman as ruler. Her name was Himiko. Notice what this passage does not say. It does not say there was a single battle. It does not name a victor or a defeated side. It says the disorder continued for years, and that the solution was not military conquest, but consensus. A woman raised to the throne by collective agreement. This was not a simple war with a clear winner. This was a collapse, followed by a negotiated settlement. But who was involved? The Chinese sources do not give us a map. What archaeology and geography can offer, however, is a picture of the forces present. The archipelago in the late 2nd century was not a unified country waiting to be conquered. It was a collection of distinct, competing powers, each with its own culture, its own burial traditions, its own gods, and its own claim to centrality. Who would control the archipelago? Who would hold the iron routes? Who would command access to the continent? The Great Disorder was the arena in which those questions were fought out. When the written record goes silent, the ground does not. Tottori Prefecture, the Aoya Kaminishichi site. Excavations here recovered the remains of approximately 110 individuals. At least 10 show clear evidence of violent trauma, cut marks, puncture wounds from bladed weapons. In one case, a bronze arrowhead was found still embedded in the pelvis. None of the injuries show signs of healing. These people did not survive what was done to them. Carbon analysis and ceramic typology placed these remains in the late 2nd century AD, the same period named in the Chinese sources. This site lies in the San-in region, the old Izumo sphere. What it tells us is that in this period, little violence was happening in this part of the archipelago. That much is not in dispute. In Kyushu, the Yoshinogari site has yielded skeletons with arrowheads, embedded in bone, and headless human remains buried in large jar coffins. And along the corridor running from northern Kyushu through the Seto Inland Sea toward the Kinai. From the late 2nd century onward, settlements began appearing on hilltops and steep ridgelines entirely unsuited to rice cultivation. Why did people choose to live in places like that? Defense. Because someone might be coming. The Aoya Kaminishichi bones, the Yoshinogari remains, the hilltop settlements. None of these individually proves a single archipelago-wide war. What they do suggest, taken together, is at least a pattern of widespread instability and a chain of violent confrontations across a broad region. The war that was not written down left its record in the ground. Now I want to offer something that goes beyond the established record. This is my reading, my hypothesis. You can disagree with it, but I think the evidence points somewhere specific. The chronicles contain 3 separate conflicts, each placed in a different reign, each told as its own story. When you lay the estimated dates over one another, they start to look less like 3 separate events and more like fragments of the same storm, distributed across the timeline. The first is the subjugation of Kibi. A prince of Emperor Korei, Kibitsu Hiko, defeats a figure called Ura in the land of Kibi. This is the story that later becomes Momotaro. Kibi was a center of iron production. There is a reading, contested but worth considering, that this conflict encodes a memory of struggle over control of iron resources and the inland sea routes. The second is the revolt of Takahaniyasu. During the reign of Emperor Sujin, a man named Takahaniyasu, a half-brother of the previous emperor, launched a coordinated assault on Yamato from two directions simultaneously, from Yamashiro to the north and from Osaka to the south. His wife secretly took soil from the sacred mountain of Kageyama and performed a ritual over it. The Nihon Shoki records her words, "This is the substance of Yamato," meaning, through this act, we claim the land itself. This was not a dispute over succession. It may have been an attempt to seize Yamato as a country, to take the land, not just the throne. The person who detected this plot in advance through divination was Momoso Hime, a figure some scholars associate with Himiko. I will come back to her. The third is the killing of Izumo Furune. Also during Sujin's reign, a powerful figure in Izumo named Furune killed his own brother because that brother had surrendered the sacred treasures of Izumo to the Yamato court without permission. The court responded by sending generals to execute Furune. Izumo had been one of the most powerful forces in the archipelago. Its distinctive burial mounds had extended across the Japan seacoast as far as Hokuriku, a mark of a regional alliance system, not a small province. And the Aoya Kamenishichi site, those bones, those injuries that date, lies within the old Izumo sphere. If the Great Disorder reached into the Izumo region, and the archaeological evidence at least raises that possibility, then what may have followed is a fracture within Izumo itself, between those willing to work with Yamato and those who were not. The killing of Izumo Furune may be one moment in that fracture. Here, one thing can be said with more confidence because it rests on archaeology, not interpretation. The distinctive square-cornered burial mounds of Izumo flourished strongly through the late 2nd and into the 1st century. After that, the shift toward Yamato-style burial forms was not sudden, it was gradual, generation by generation, family by family. The archaeology of absorption, not conquest. Even if the Great Disorder set something in motion in Izumo, the full absorption into Yamato took much longer. That part of the story belongs to the blank century, and we covered it in an earlier episode. Now, my reading of what the chronicles did with all of this. I do not think they erased it. I think they disassembled it and distributed the pieces across separate reigns, each told as its own contained story. The Kibi subjugation, assigned to the era of Emperor Kore. The Takehaniyasu revolt, assigned to Sujin. The killing of Izumo Furune, also assigned to Sujin. Each stands alone in the text, but lay the estimated dates over one another, and the same storm appears, broken into pieces, scattered across the timeline. The chronicles did not erase the war, they disassembled it, so it could no longer be seen. During the era of the 8 silent emperors, what was Yamato doing? The chronicles do not say, but one thing can be said. The consort clans of those 8 rulers were all minor local families, no alliances with powerful regional lords. In the same period that Chinese historians described as years without a ruler, Yamato may have been caught inside that disorder too. Too small, too unstable to leave a record. At the end of that period, 2 figures come into focus. The first is Momoso Hime, a woman described in the chronicles as the great aunt of Emperor Sujin. The Nihon Shoki says she was wise, and that she could perceive events before they occurred. It was she who detected the Takehaniyasu conspiracy through divination and brought the warning to the emperor. She is also said to be buried in Hashihaka Kofun. Hashihaka is the oldest large-scale keyhole-shaped burial mound at Makimuku, one of the most significant tombs in early Japanese history. Its construction is dated by archaeologists to approximately the 240s to 260s AD. The death of Himiko, as estimated from Chinese sources, falls around 248 AD. The convergence of these dates has led a number of scholars to identify Hashihaka as Himiko's tomb and to read Momosohimi as the person behind the name. This is not a settled question, but it is a compelling one, and the date alignment is not easily dismissed. The second figure is Emperor Sujin. He is called Hatsukuni Shirasu, the one who first governed the country, the same title given to Emperor Jimmu. Two emperors, one title, both described as the first. Why? One reading, and I want to be clear, this is a reading, not a conclusion, is that Sujin was not simply the 10th in a line. He may have been the person who rebuilt order after the Great Disorder, the one who actually assembled what we now think of as the Yamato court. The shared title may be the chronicles' way of encoding two different foundings, one mythological, one historical. That remains contested, but the shared title is there. The chronicles preserved it. The memory of the war is in the ground. The memory of the woman is in two separate histories, written in two languages, and the silence of 200 years is written into the structure of the chronicles themselves. The war that was not written down did not disappear. It was still there, in another form,